All right, this video is just a quick camera overview. So we see in our scene, right, we have this scene that we start with by default. We have a main camera. So I can select it by going ahead and clicking on it over here in the hierarchy, or I could have just selected it by going and selecting it here. So this is a good chance to let you know that these are tools that we can operate objects with, right? And a camera is just another object. Of course, it's kind of a special object. But with the move tool selected, right, we can move it up and down, right? And that determines what we see. So we have nothing to see. So let's make our first object and kind of skip ahead a little bit. But I just want something for the camera to see. So we're going to go to Game Object, 3D Object, and let's just make a sphere. And we can just leave it wherever it puts it and go back to selecting our camera. And so now we can see in our camera preview, or if we go into the game preview, right, we can see our object. So you can determine how you see the sphere by the height. Now, for our purposes, what are we going to want to do? We're going to want the height to be that of a real person. Now, we're actually not going to have to really completely set this ourselves, or maybe we will. We're going to use some special types of cameras coming up, especially with VR. But if we look at Inspector, we see, right, the y-axis controls height. So if we want to think about how, what's the usual person's kind of where their eyes are, I'd say it's about, 5 feet up or so, or a little more. So and the thing to understand is that all measurements are in meters in Unity. So, right, we can leave it at 1.75 is probably fine. We could change it to 1.5. It doesn't matter. Looking at the inspector here, this is all of the properties of the camera that we can set. Projection, right? We talked about perspective and orthographic. We're going to obviously leave it in perspective for normal, how our mind works. The field of view, right, determines our field of view. 60 is pretty close to a regular human field of view. We have the near and far clipping planes of our view frustum that we can set here, determining what we see and everything, what renders. And then there's just a bunch of things that we don't need to know about. Now let's say the one concept you need to know is that the camera we only set it once, and then we never really touch it again, because it's just where the scene starts. After that, we'll wind up using things like locomotion, right, moving around, navigating. So you just set your camera for where you want the scene to open. So up here, besides being able to move it, right, wherever we want to move it, we can use rotate, right? So we can rotate the camera. Where is it looking? And really that's it. The rest of these tools really have no effect on a camera. We'll use those more when we get into objects. And so that's just a really quick basic camera overview. Make sure you can place a camera in, put a sphere in your first object, and just make sure you can kind of rotate your camera.